Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube Just Daf It. Today we're doing Nazir Daf Yudalid number 14. We have an amazing share for you today. We're starting today on the bottom of the Gimel Beis, talking about overlapping Nazirus. The Mishnah, which we read yesterday, talked about if a person pledges to be a Nazir a regular Nazir, a 30-day Nazir. And also he pledged to be a Nazir when he has a son. And his son is born 20 days into his first Nazirus, right? Do you stop for your son and do 20 days and then 30 days and then make up for your son afterwards? Make up for your regular Nazirus afterwards? Or don't you stop? So it really depends on the lashon you use. The Mishnah says that if he says first, I'm going to be a Nazir, so then first you do that Nazirus, then you do 30 days, and then when that 30 days is over, then you do for your son. The Gemara, and if you say I'm going to do for my son, so then really, right, you have to interrupt your Nazirus for your son, and then do the Nazirus, complete the first Nazirus after your son's Nazirus. The Nazirus you took upon yourself for the birth of your son is completed. The Gemara has some more questions about this. The Gemara says, Bayi Rava, Amar Harini Nazir La'achar Esram Yom. I'm going to become a Nazir in 20 days from now. Not ready yet, after 20 days of preparation. But then he says, I also want to be a Nazir now for 100 days. Mao, what's the halacha? Came with Alan Meya B'Eshrin and Lo Shalmin Lo Chaylan, right? Do we say that, right? He took upon himself now 100 days, but in 20 days he has another Nazir, a 30-day Nazir starting. So therefore, since if he first said a 20-day Nazir, even though I first said I'm going to be a Nazir in 20 days, so therefore, and it's impossible for the 100 days to finish before the 20 days. So therefore, Lo Chaylan, the 100-day Nazir is not Chal. And presumably it wouldn't be Chal at all, because he's saying Ma'achshav. And if you say Ma'achshav, it has to be from now, and it can't be. Or do we say that it is Chal? Right? He does 20 days now, then he does a 30-day Nazirus after 20 days, and then he does 80 days to complete the first Nazirus. And that makes sense logically because one of the requisites of a complete Nazirus is 30 days of your hair growing long. We'll talk more about this, why it's so necessary for your hair to be 30 days grown in Iyam with Ben Sion. So you have 80 days at the end, so you have Gidol Sar, so there's no problem. So the Gemara says, Nazirus Mu'eta, say a more pointed question, a shorter Nazirus, meaning you took upon yourself Nazirus now, and also Nazirus in 20 days. So Gemara says, really, that's what the Gemara is asking, right? For example, let's rephrase the question. Top of your Dalam and Aleph. Im Tim say Lomer Nazirus Muetes came with Asar Yomin who do you say and Lo Salik Lay Halin Asara Vaday Nazir, since, right, if he would take upon himself a Nazirus now, and a Nazirus in 20 days, a 30-day Nazirus now, and a 30-day Nazirus starting in 20 days, so therefore, if the first Nazirus was Chal right now, it would only have 10 days left to complete after the fulfillment of the second Nazirus, and there's no Gidol Sar. It wouldn't be a Vadai. The words Vadai Nazir are part of the next statement. Right? It can't be Chal because you only have 10 days. You don't have Gidol Sar. How about Vadai Nazir Mea Yom? Came when the Islay Tam and Yom He has 80 days at the end. Salkin like it works for him. So therefore, he could start 20 days now, do a 30-day Nazirus, and then after the 30-day Nazirus, do another 80 days to finish the first Nazirus. So low. Or maybe not. In his Elomer Chayli, if you say is Chal, Amar Harini, meaning in the case of 120, meaning one Nazirus in 20 days, and a Nazirus Ma'achshav of 100 days. Amar Hareini Nazir La'achar Esrim Yom Ma'achshav Nazir Olam Mahu. I'm going to call Nazir a 30-day Nazir after 20 days. And right now, I want to become a Nazir Olam for the rest of his life. Mahu. Michaila Aleha Olo. Right? Do we say that the Nazir's Olam is Chal? Because once he takes the Nazir's Olam upon himself, there's no possibility, right? We always give precedence to the first statement he makes. So he said Nazir La'achar Esrim Yom, but if he becomes a Nazir Olam also, so that precludes him from fulfilling the Esrim Yom. So where it says, Imtim Selom or Hacha, came on the Efshar Lit Shulei, maybe it's possible for him to be Matir, the Neder, right? The nether of that's going to be chal in 20 days. So it's chayla. So the Nazir Olam is actually chal. What about Amar Harini Nazir Shimshon Achar Esrim Yom? I want to become a Nazir Shimshon after 20 days. Basically, a Nazir for the rest of your life. However, Nazir Shimshon, right? You can't be Shoal and Achshav Nazir Stam. And now I want to become a Nazir for 30 days, starting today. Mao. Hachal Efshar Shule. You can't be Shoal. The Gemara Makos and Nafkaf Bey says you can't be Matir and Nazir Shimshon. Michaela. Do we say that the Nazir is Shimshon is Chal? Because then he won't be able to fulfill the regular Nazir in 20 days. Olo. So the Gemara has another question. Amar Kamoshe b'Shiva ba'Adar. I'm like Moshe on the 7th of Adar. Mai. This is another question the Gemara has, really unrelated to the other questions. The question is, if you say a Kabbalah like the 7th day of Adar for Moshe Rabbeinu. Now Moshe Rabbeinu was both born on Zion Adar and both died on Zion Adar. So we don't understand what the person's saying, but probably he's been Kabbalah some nether and Naziris. He doesn't say what the nether is, so he's probably become a Naziris, right? But if you want to attach a Naziris to something, usually a Naziris is sorrowful. So are you attaching to the birthday, in which case you're saying nothing? Are you attaching it to the death of Moshe Rabbeinu, which would be the Kabbalah of a Naziris? That's another question to ask. Where is a lot of questions. So what's the halacha? Show me now chad ma'ases. There's at least the first one we're going to answer. Hari nazir la'achar esrim yom ma'achshav mea yom mona esrim ma'achar mona shlosha achar mona shmonim. He does exactly what he's supposed to do. 20 days, then 30 days Nazir, then he finishes 80 days. K'dei lahashlim Nazir shishona. That makes sense because, as we said before, at the end of the 30-day Naziris, he still has another 80 days to grow his hair long before he completes his 100-day Naziris. Nitma b'mei b'no. So the Gemara jumps to another question. Nitma b'mei b'no. Let's say, in our Mishnah's case, right, the Mishnah talks about a case where you become a Nazir now. And then, right, you become a Nazir, you pledged a regular Nazir, you also pledged a Nazir when you had a son. So you observed part of your Naziris, and then you had a son. So you said the Naziris for your son, and then, like the second case of the Mishnah, and then you said Naziris, a regular Naziris. So therefore, you interrupted, right? You do it and start Naziris now, and then when your son is born 20 days later, then you interrupted and finish Naziris for your son, and then finish Naziris, the regular Naziris. So didn't even know you became Tameh. Normally, when you come Tameh in the Levin Naziris, it's Soser. You have to start counting again. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Soser. It's Soser. Not only is it Soser the Naziris you stuck for your son, but it's also Soser the first 20 days of the regular Naziris. It's all one long Naziris. It's not Soser. And it's Soser the Naziris of your son, but not a Soser the entire Naziris. Rabbi Yochanan are Soser Chad the Naziris Harichtehi. Right? The Naziris, the two Kabbalahs of Naziris, one Naziris of 30 days, and the Naziris for your son is one long Naziris. Shalach Shamar Einon Soser Naziris Didei Lechud Udebrei Lechud. His Naziris is separate, and the one for his son is separate. Obviously, Rish Lakish makes a lot more sense over here. Hard to understand Rabbi Yochanan, who we paskin like. We'll explain Rabbi Yochanan more in Iyod Ben Sio. Nidma Mitzah Raso. Another machlok is Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish. Normally, a Nazir who becomes Tameh, right? There's different types of tumah. If you become Tameh by coming in contact with a corpse, right? Tumas Hames. That is Soser. That destroys your Nazir, so you have to start counting again. However, let's say you got Tumat Saras, you got leprosy, whatever translated as. So the halacha is, we'll learn later on in the Masechta, that Saras, even though you can't continue counting your Naziris, it's not Soser Naziris. You just wait till the Saras is over, and then you resume counting the Naziris that you're in the middle of. So let's say he was a Saras, and then he came in contact with a corpse while he was in these days of Saras. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Soser. It dismantles his entire Naziris. It doesn't. He's in the middle of Naziris. He happens not to be counting now because of the Saras, but he's still in the middle of Naziris. It's not Soser. Saras lechud, Naziris lechud. Just like I said before, the Naziris of his son and his own Naziris are independent. Here also, the counting of Naziris is separate from the actual days of the Saras. The Sricha, and these two machlokas between Rish Lakish and Yochanan are necessary. If we just had the first machlokas about his Naziris and his son's Naziris, they're basically the same type of Naziris, right? One's a Nazir because he had a son, and one's a Nazir because he was Makabal, a Nazir and Dava. However, it's basically the same thing. Here, the days of Saras are not really Nazirus because you're Tame, right? And you're not even counting days of Nazirus. You just halt your Nazirus for a time. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan agrees to Reish Lakish. If we just said in the latter case, right, if Saras, that's where Reish Lakish enforces his opinion. In the first case, Ema Model Rabbi Yochanan is Model Rabbi Yochanan, and that's basically the same type of Nazirus, and it dismantles the entire Nazirus, not just of your son, but your personal counting also. Sricha. So therefore, it's necessary to teach me both sets of machlokas. Titba biyom gidol sar, another machlokas between Rav and Shmuel. Now, even though we said that if you become tamei, corpse tumor, in the middle of your Nazirus, that dismantles your entire Nazirus. If you violate the other Yisur, for example, you drink wine, or you get a haircut, that does not dismantle the entire Nazirus. However, if you get a haircut, right, if a regular Nazirus is 30 days, and you got a haircut on day 15, so even though it doesn't, you don't have to count another 30 days, but you have to count, you can't finish your Nazirus for another 30 days, because you have to have Gidol Pera. Gidol Pera is at least 30 days when you shave your head and your Nazirus. So that's called, it's called Yom, what does the Gemara say? It's called Yom Gidol Sar. Nitvav Yom Gidol Sar, right? For example, Nazirus is 30 days. So day 15, you got a haircut. So your Nazirus really ends after 30 days. However, you have to keep on growing your hair. You can't bring the korbanos, you can't shave your head until day 45. So it's like the Nazirus is over, but it's not over. So Yom Gidol Sar, you become tummy with corpse tumor in those 15 days after the 30 days is over. Does that sosa? Rav Amar Einon sosa. Rav says it doesn't dismantle your entire Nazirus. I feel Rabbi Yochanan Damar sosa. You're Rabbi Yochanan who says that by tzaras it's sosa. How do you mean the kaim Nazirus Gidol kaim Nazirus? You're in the middle of your Nazirus. The tzaras has halted your Nazirus. Gidol Sar Mishtam Nazirus. So you finish your Nazirus. You're just doing something extra to make sure you can shave your head. You need Gidol Pera. You need to have 30 days worth of hair growth. Shmuel Amar Sosa. Shmuel says it is Sosa. I feel like Shlakish Damar ain't Sosa. He says by Saras is not Sosa. Hasam Shtein Nazirus. There, it's two different types of Nazirus, right? Both by you and your son. Also by Saras and the regular Nazirus. Here it's one Nazirus, right? It's only one Kabbalah of 30-day Nazirus. Right, and you happen to have cut your hair, so you're just fulfilling that Nazirus. Amar Rav Chisda, we pass like Rav. Amar Rav Chisda, Kol Modim Shem Kidesh Sar B'Dam Ein Lo Takana. Rav Chisda makes sort of a cryptic statement over here. He is Kidesh Sar B'Dam, meaning at the end of your 30-day Nazirus, what do? Right, you have to bring karbanos, you shave your head. So he brings the karbanos, and part of the karbanos, you take some of the blood of the karbonos, you sprinkle on the mizbeach. So they brought the karbonos, but he hasn't cut his hair yet, right? Ein lo takana. Presumably we're talking about he became tamei, right? In between, right? In the middle of becoming tahor, right? He brought his karbonos. They're throwing the blood on the mizbeach, but he has not yet got a haircut, right? He says ein lo takana. Sounds like ein lo takana, like he's stuck, right? He's like a Nazir, and he can't finish his Nazir. He's stuck forever. So the Gemara said, "Liba deman, yeah, liba Rabbi Eliezer." According to Eliezer or Machlokas later on, we'll say, he holds, in order to end your Nazirus, right? Bringing the karbanos is not just, you need both. You need to bring the karbanos and to shave your head. Until you do both, your Nazirus is not over. So according to Eliezer, it says, "Tegalachas ma'keves tok malosi." Velistar, you're in the middle of your Nazirus. You haven't cut your hair. So therefore, you become tamei before cutting your hair, so it should dismantle your entire Nazirus. You have to start counting again. I'll leave with the Rabbana. What do you mean, Ein takana? He has a takana. Just go back and start counting again. I'll leave with the Rabbana. According to Rabbana, they say it's not compulsory to shave your head. It l'chachila is supposed to do that, but it's not ma'akev v'di'evet. Your Nazirus is over once you bring the karbanos, right? So they say so your Nazirus is over. So maybe takana. His Nazirus is over. Right, of course it's not dismantling as zero. So really, Rav Chisda was going according to the Rabbanan. Well, what does it mean? El Dakana doesn't mean he has no way of completing his zeros. El Dakana limits his giluach, meaning he can't do giluach anymore. His zeros is over because b'diavad he brought his karbanos. He sufficed to end his Nazirus. But he can't shave his head because he's Tameh, right? He's Tameh, and his Nazirus is not completely over. So therefore, he can't do Mrs. Giluch, but technically, his Nazirus is over. I'm Rabbi Yossi Rechnina. Nazir Shekol Yom of Loke al Tuma, Ve'eno Loke al Tagalach. Let's say he completed his Nazirus and he didn't bring his karbanos or do the Tagalach, so he didn't shave his head, right? Do you get Malchus if you violated your Nazirus at that point? So he says, Rabbi Yossi Rechnina says, only on becoming Tameh with corpse tuma, then you get Malchus. But if you get a haircut or you drink wine, you don't get Malchus. Ma'ishna tuma delaki. Why is tuma different? Amakra kol yemei hiziro lashem. All the days that he's mazir, and that's talking about the tuma. The rabbos yom shel achar mlos ki yom shel ifnei mlos. Right? Kol. The word kol is inclusive. Right? Even the days that are where the Nazirus is over, it's like the Nazirus is still in force, and therefore, if you become Tameh, you get Malchus. That's true. You should also be chayiv if you cut your hair after 30 days. It says by shaving your head, cutting it a haircut, kol made in nizro. So that should include it should include also the days afterwards. V'su. A further question: kol yimei nizro mikol sheyasem yefen ayayin lasos yom shalachar melos ki yom shaltei melos. Also by eating wine, grape products, drinking wine, eating grapes, also that applies after the Nazirus is over, right? As long as you haven't ended your Nazirus by bringing karbanos, and according to Relez, you have to actually shave your head, so your Nazirus is not over. So the Gemara answers on the top of Ted Vav and Aleph, Shiny Hachad Amar Rachmana V'Timei Rosh Nizro, Misha Nizro Tolui Lo Barosho. The pasuk adds on. Which is in the context of those psukim where it says the word kol, it adds a v'timei rosh nizro, right? He was matame his hair, right? So you see that as long as your hair is not cut, your Nazirus is not over, the timei tuma still applies. Misha nizro tolo barosho. His Nazirus is tolo barosho, meaning if he hasn't cut his hair yet, he hasn't ended his Nazirus. So tuma applies. Whereas Mesivei. Fine. So you have a pasuk, Mesa. We have a brisa. Nazir shekol yamav. His Nazirus is over. Stam Nazirus is over 30 days. Also, galeach lishos yain al hamel Mesa. He's still usher until he brings karbanos and shaves his head. He's still usher to get a haircut, to drink wine, and to become a tamil Mesa. Mim gilech mishas yain v'nitmal Mesa. When he's a wine. You see explicitly, if he does any of these things, he gets malchus. You see, it's enforced. Yufta. The Gemara says this brisa obviously is a refutation of Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, and therefore. Even though the Nazirus is technically over after 30 days, Malchus still applies. So we'll talk about this in Iyun Ben Sion exactly. If your Nazirus is over, it's not Nazirus is 30 days. Nazirus have to count 30 days, be Shomer 30 days, right? Don't become Tameh, don't drink wine, don't cut your hair, and then it's over. But I haven't ended my Nazirus yet. So why should you get Malchus? The Nazirus is over. Nazirus is Kabbalah Nazirus 30 days. We'll talk about that, Iyun Ben Sion, coming up next.